Hey, I am April McLamb. I am the founder and therapist for Under the Broom Tree, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a graduate nurse. I'm waiting to sit for my boards as a registered nurse in the near future, so I have a couple of different perspectives. But more importantly than that, I am a child of God. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. And as you can see, I'm a black woman. Today is a day that I just post something about moving forward. That is my mantra. It's been my mantra for a long time. Moving forward. How do you move forward after something? After a setback, after a bad opportunity, after a breakup, after a trauma, after somebody told you no. And for me this week, as you've probably been watching the news, I have been terribly stricken by the murder, of George Floyd. I've seen it so many times on social media. We're really tired. And as a mental health therapist that works with trauma just about every day, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted seeing it. I'm exhausted with that it's happening. But it's not new. That's why some people seem to understand this is not another trendy topic. This is something that has been going on, I don't know, since the 1500s to black people. So the idea, the behaviors, they're the same, but they're being caught more because of the age that we're living in, the technological age. This is captured more. I'm just purely disgusted. But I want to spend so much time expressing my emotions. What I do want to express is helping, trying to X out this, because I think it's important. And I think it's important that other people of color and white people, other races, understand the reactions and the responses that we're having right now. I think it's because there are a few different reasons, but my take on it might be a little different. In trauma, there are two different ones. There are types. Some people think there are three. One being acute trauma, one being chronic trauma, one being complex trauma. The two that I want to speak on is acute trauma and complex trauma. Acute trauma means that someone has gone through a single incident that has changed the trajectory of their life. Whether it be they were in a car accident, they witnessed someone get killed, they saw a car accident, they lost their job. That's a single incident. One isolated incident is considered acute trauma. And 9 times out of 10, the responses from that trauma happen within a period of 0 to 6 months. 6 months or after is complex trauma. Complex trauma is varied and it is multifaceted and it's constant. And sometimes it comes in different shapes and forms that if you don't have a close eye to it, it'll make you feel like that the trauma you're experiencing is different, but it's not. That is what Black Americans are experiencing, what we go through. And unfortunately, what I was born with. We experience complex trauma because there are systematic oppression behaviors that keep us from being able to voice our concerns, to get ahead, to just be. And it comes in different forms. The first traumatic experience that I can think of is we went through the African slave trade, which in turn made us Americans because we were brought over here. And then, of course, you know the story about when the Emancipation Proclamation, mind you, not forget that it wasn't enforced several years later. Lynching happened. Segregation happened. Jim Crow happened. Then people like to say there was victory in integration, but there wasn't victory in integration. We got pushback when integration happened too. And then there were the 70s and the 80s, which people like to say the crack epidemic. But if you're familiar with all of those instances, they brought institutional oppressive tactics onto our people, whether it was economic, physical, job-wise, being able to get loans, being able to buy a home, being able to own a business, being able to go to school, have certain foods and restaurants and access to produce and healthy choices, being able to have the right education. Even some of our historically Black colleges don't get recognition for the amount of educators and scientists and inventors that we put out every day. We don't even get enough money from the government to keep those sustaining itself. So most of our HBCUs are run by alumni donations or fundraisers. We don't even get half the cut of what most public white institutions get. Let's not also forget that we are outnumbered in politics and the political systems. And so I go back on to the 90s, and then police brutality was highlighted, even though police brutality has been there through the thread the entire time, starting with slave masters. The point that I'm making is the Black community is experiencing chronic trauma. The trauma that we experience has never stopped. It's varied. It comes in different forms and ways and fashions. And I put a post up the other day about how the response from the Minnesota citizens is not abnormal. And I think what kind of pisses me off a little bit is the response not only from white people, but Black people too, about we shouldn't loot and you're just destroying the community and you're just adding more fuel to the fire and we should just, stay calm, be quiet, strategize, think about ways on how we can infiltrate and be one. I cannot even begin to explain to you how backwards that is to think that way, and the expectation for a people to respond that way when they've been traumatized, particularly chronic trauma. If you study trauma, which I have, which I practice, and which I've gone through myself, if you've watched my videos before, trauma has everything to do with what has happened to you, what you've witnessed, what you've heard about, what you've seen about. The human body even has a system called the parasympathetic system that initiates cortisol in our brain, letting you know that you are in trouble. It's called the fear or flight or freeze response. What we're seeing in Minnesota is a trauma response. They're responding out of their own despair. They're responding out of anger. They're responding out of sadness. They're responding from the mere rejection of a human life. And then people being okay with watching human life leave the world the way that George Floyd did. So what did they do? Started tearing stuff up. You mean to tell me that it's okay for all of us to watch George Floyd the way that he died, the way that he was killed? You know, not a whole lot of people are saying stuff about that, but what people are saying about the looting, that's not okay. That don't help the community at all. How are we supposed to help the community when we don't have a seat at the table right now? How are we supposed to strategize and have partnerships when they're not even listening to us when we're saying we can't breathe, which is a basic physiological need from any person? Usually, if you're out in a restaurant and you're eating your food and then you see your neighbor or someone and they're saying, "Oh, I can't breathe," somebody runs to their aid and gives them the Heimlich maneuver, or they call 911, or they call the next person and say, "Is there a doctor or a nurse here?" They go and run to their aid. But in this instance, 911 was there, and they still didn't do anything when the man said he couldn't breathe, when the witnesses said blood was coming out of his nose, when I could see from my view, I thought slobber and spit coming out the side of his mouth, which tells me that his knee was so far into his neck that either that man's windpipe was being crushed, the trachea, he had some type of respiratory issue that wasn't being addressed. That tells me that he didn't come to his aid at all. But you can go to a restaurant and say, "I can't breathe," and people will run to your aid. And ironically, you call 911 to help you. And now everybody's wondering why the people of Minnesota are mad. Why buildings are on fire. Here's the thing about when I meet with a client, or I'm faced personally in my life when I'm dealing with drama or trauma. And sometimes it's both. Three things. One, I allow the person, my clients, the person that I'm encouraging, or I even allow myself to feel the emotion. If I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling bad. If I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling angry. What I used to hate the most about was, when I would go through something, some people would tell me, cheer up, chin up, smile, it's going to be okay. But no, it's not. Right now, it's not. Don't pacify me. Black people for too long have been pacified, and we've been taught to be passive aggressive and eat it, so much so that we've allowed stress to kill us, which has caused heart disease, high cholesterol, mental disorders, bad eating habits, bad sleeping habits, long-term, short-term relationships, and dysfunctional families, all because we have been learning to swallow and eat the emotion that we feel. That's not cool. There is nothing wrong with experiencing emotions. Anger, sadness, depression are normal emotions. They're not abnormal. And so what I say to my clients and what I say to other people, what I even say to myself, I sit in the emotion. Sometimes I stew. Sometimes I write about it. Sometimes I even let my children know, and my husband know, and my family know I'm angry. You're not going to get a smile out of me today. Sorry, not sorry. Do you know why? Do you know why, y'all? Because I believe that my emotions and my spiritual systems allow me to feel these things in order for a reaction in my body to make a move. And that goes back to fear, freeze, and flight. It's how we've been made up. I can't tell you how often I have seen young men, black boys, wanting to cry, and their family saying, hush, stop that. All that talking. Why? And then me, I grow up, I'm in my 20s, and then I'm trying to understand why my dude, or why your dude, or why our pastor or our fathers or our uncles can't express themselves. Let's flip it. I ain't got nothing wrong with black girl magic. I ain't got nothing wrong being called superwoman, superhero. But black women, some of us get caught up in that title to the point where we're breaking our necks, having breakdowns because we're trying to fulfill a role that we know darn well we need help doing. And then we get caught up in this title because we've been taught in our emotions, oh, she got it. She's strong. She a strong black woman. Make no mistake, April, I am strong because of my community, because of the strength of the people that have come into my life, because of my faith system, because of the wisdom and the gifts and the talents that have been impressed upon me and the things that I've been taught. But make no mistake, who I am is a village effort. It's not solo. And so we have to create spaces to allow ourselves to feel the emotion. So let Minnesota feel the emotion they want to feel. Once they have, let's create a safe space for them. They tearing it up because they don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. I kid you not. I just came home from the park with my kids, and we would have been there longer. But we dealt with it almost happened. But we almost dealt with a Karen issue. Y'all know what I'm talking about. There were 2 Karens with their kids. And the kids that my children had an issue with, their mother wasn't there. So, of course, my kid comes, says, they calling us turds, mommy. I know what time it is. I said, okay. So I get out the car and I see the young girl going for my younger son. And she stops in her tracks because she see me coming. Jeremiah, he gets off the swing, and then I said, y'all go to the car. Now, I could have yelled, I could have screamed, but I knew the 2 Karens were watching me. This is what we're talking about. I have to be strategic, even though my emotions was fuming. But it's just me and my kids. And unfortunately, I wasn't there when the situation happened. I was sitting in my car. So I listened to them tell me what they think my kids did. And then the 2 Karens jump in. Oh, it was everybody. All your kids was doing that and this and the other. I have a gift of discernment. I know what time it is. My kids don't say turd. They don't even know what it means. Because they was asking me in the car when I got back. They was like, what is that? I thought it was like, something coming out of your body, mommy. I said, it is. I said, you know what color it is? They said it's usually brown and dark. I said, that's why, baby. I said, people sometimes underhandedly make suggestions or say things about us, and instead of really claiming what you all did to defend yourself, those 2 Karens decided that, oh, it was just everybody's fault, even though my children didn't initiate the issue. How do I create a safe space for them? Do we go home and stay in the house? Hell no. Do we go back? Blow up the park? I'm too tired to do that. Mind you, this is how God be getting me. This is the same part we went to yesterday to go clean up. Me and my kids are a part of Jack and Jill of Anchorage. And yesterday's event, we went to go clean the park up to make it a safe, clean environment for the community. And the very next day, my kids are called a piece of trash. I can't make this stuff up, y'all. So back to creating safe spaces. The people in Minnesota, they need a safe space. They're not really sure where they're going to get that from because they don't even feel safe in the community that they live in. Can you imagine what it was like to wake up the next day and black people walking down that same street that George Floyd was walking on? Did anybody walk on there? I don't know. I know it's lit up now, though. Because what you're seeing in the looting and in the riots is the visceral and the chronic reactions that we feel in our souls on a daily basis. I can't tell you how many times they've pulled my husband over and I was sitting in the car. And he won't doing anything. My husband is a dark-skinned man. And we live in a pretty nice neighborhood. Constantly being pulled over and followed. Where's his safe space? How do you suggest we do that? We create our own. For us. By us. Fubu is an old brand, but it has some sentiment to it. We create our own spaces. We have these conversations just like I'm trying to have with you right now on this phone. Feel free to just ask me questions, reach out to me, talk to me. You know, I got several followers and I'm following several people on here. Talk to me. Let's make a plan. Let's do something. Yeah, I'm in Alaska. That don't mean anything. People like to say, oh, Alaska don't go through what Minnesota is going through. Yeah, we do. It just look different. That goes back to that multifaceted areas of trauma. It comes in many overt and covert ways. You see it or there's subtleties. The last thing that I wanted to point out was once you feel the emotion, you create a safe space, rest. Rest. How do I rest when I'm already at odds with myself? How do I rest? What do I tell people that are dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder? We practice it together. I actually show them how to, and that's okay. I go back and find out what they think they're strong in the middle of their own weakness. It amazes me how powerful our people are in the midst of this turmoil. The conversations that are had, the protesting that is had, the pushback that we're coming up against. Like here in my community now, they already putting on a rally tomorrow, which I'll be present for. And we're trying to determine what in our community to address whatever is going on that may be going on here. So rest could mean whatever is in your circle of influence and what space that you can control. What does that look like for you? We're under the coronavirus as well, and it's just unfair that we got to deal with the coronavirus, our jobs, taking care of our families, and racial trauma at the same time. Don't seem fair, does it? Some people like to say that since I am a Christian mental health therapist and my practice is faith-based, that, you know, there are a lot of people out there that think that some people use Christianity or religion to escape. I've been thinking about and pondering on that, and here's my initial thoughts. That might be true. But when I hide myself into the Lord, I don't hide myself covering the damages and the ugliness, the anger that I feel from him. The way that I talk to God, I talk to him just like this. Don't mince your words. You angry? Tell him. You upset? Tell him. If you don't understand why, well, if you are God, why aren't you doing anything? Tell him. You think that's going to hurt God's feelings? Nah. Being in relationship with him is just that. Communication. I don't miss my words with him. I tell him what's up. I yell, I shout, I scream. I do whatever I gotta do for him to get the message. Because that's the intimacy that I have with him. We too scared to be intimate. Intimacy is exactly what it is. When you with your partner, or when you with your family member, or when you with your mom or your dad or your grandparents or your auntie and uncle, don't they get all of you? Don't you tell them for real? For me, my sister is on here. Hey, Tiff. She know how I get down. I tell her exactly what I'm thinking, exactly what I'm feeling. And I ain't missing no words. I feel like God wants you to do the same. That's where I find my rest. I don't stay calm and strategize. I tell God I want to blow something up. What you gonna do about this? Because you see, they don't respect our seat at the table that they so-called have an open door policy for us. They don't respect it. Sometimes they don't even recognize it. Sometimes they don't even call you president. Wink, wink. When you have and earned and worked to be at the table. So, I'm saying all this to say, what we seeing in Minnesota is trauma. Have some compassion. Leave your judgments to the side. Stop rebuking saints and let them people feel their anger. Let them find a safe space. Even if it takes a while, let them find it. But don't point fingers at them. They just experienced trauma. You wouldn't say that to a soldier who came back from Iraq. You wouldn't say that to a mother who lost her baby. Oh, just pull it together and you'll have another baby. Nah, don't do that. Please. They just experienced the trauma this week. And people on social media and everywhere are telling them and pointing their fingers, oh, you should not be responding that way. It gets nowhere. What? It's not fair, y'all. It's not fair. My dad, one of the wisest dudes I know, used to tell me all the time, if you want to make a change, do something different. It's insanity to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, expecting a different response. So let's respond differently, my people. Let's make these changes in our own circle of influence, in our own earshot or hand of where we need to go. I'll be doing it in mine. What are you going to do about yours? And if you're not sure what to do, reach out to me. I'm open. But my impression upon you is, before we get to work, it's okay to feel what you want to feel. Let that ride out however long it need to ride out. Find your safe space, rest, and we'll get to work. Peace.